That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, before we get into the video, I need to make an announcement. Okay, so y'all know we've been talking about starting these Flock Dynasty startups on Patreon. And yes, we have a long list of people wanting to join. And yes, I am waiting just like everyone else. Trust me, I want new leagues. I want to get in new drafts. But what we have been waiting on is we have been waiting on everybody in the current Flock Dynasty leagues that were started in 2018 and 2019 to get their league dues in. And I've been waiting, I've been DMing, I've been as patient as I possibly could. We pushed the league due date back about a month now. And yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I really wanted to get everyone back in, but I just can't wait any longer. So what we are doing is every team that was not paid for with their 2021 dues is now going to be available for new Flock members. As my number one priority, my number one responsibility as commissioner of all those dynasty leagues is to guarantee that they are going to successfully go from season to season. Because if we have 25% of the leagues failing and 25% of the leagues not being able to move on to 2022, there are a couple things here. One, that is disastrous. We know that if that would happen, which there's no way it's going to, trust me, I'm not letting that happen. That would pretty much get rid of every point of Dynasty. You wouldn't be able to construct a team with a long-term outlook just because you're going, oh crap, is this league only going to last 2 or 3 years? Should I treat it like a redraft league? And that's not what I want. So my number one priority is going to be getting those current orphan teams filled. So if you go over to our Discord chat, the link will be down in the description below to join Discord, to join our chat. Literally, you don't need an email, you don't need a credit card, you don't need anything. You just click the link, choose a nickname, and then you're in the chat. You can chat fantasy football, fantasy basketball, whatever the hell y'all want. And more importantly, you can go to the chat section that says Flock Teams Available. There's going to be a screenshot of every roster that is available for someone new to take. And if you want it, please, ASAP, click on that profile with the Fantasy Flock Network. That way you can shoot me a DM and say, hey Mason, is Team X still available? And then I'll go through, look at my spreadsheets and say, yeah, it is. Do you want it? Do you want to get the league dues in? Do you want to start trading right now? And once we have that completed with all of those current orphan teams, then that day, I promise you, I'm going to be starting new Dynasty startup drafts. So please guys, just be a little bit patient with me. I'm doing the best I can. And I need to guarantee that every single one of those leagues is going to continue going into 2022. All right, so I spent way too much time on that. Let's dive into this video. And in this video, what we're going to do is we are going to be talking about quarterbacks with their value possibly bottoming out. I mean, quarterbacks that held a significant amount of value this past season, and now they completely bottomed out. And no, we are not going to be talking about the guys that are not having any value in Dynasty whatsoever. We're not going to be talking about the Drew Brees, who most people expect to retire. We're not going to be talking about the Ben Roethlisberger, who most people expect to retire. We're not going to be talking about the Taylor Heinicke, who, if you have half a brain, you know that he's not going to be a starter next season. We're going to talk about guys that are worth a little bit more than that, and I think they could bottom out to this type of level. Okay, so now our first guy, some would argue, is already down at that level, but I have to bring him up for a couple reasons, and this is going to be Drew Lock. Okay, so the number one reason I have to bring up Drew Lock is while, no, I was not advocating for anybody to draft him last offseason. I wasn't making videos saying this is our guy, this is our trade target, yada, yada, yada. Surprisingly, going through and reviewing my Dynasty rosters, I have way too high of an ownership percentage on Drew Lock. I don't know how I got him on so many rosters. I remember my thought process in offseason ago, whenever possibly I was drafting him at the back half of Superflex leagues or trading for him at what I thought was a value. So I was looking at the Denver situation and I was going, you know what? Denver could easily have the best skill position group in the entire NFL. They have Cortland Sutton. They have KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant. They have a good offensive line to go along with it. I mean, Drew Lock, yes, he may not necessarily be a world-class talent, but he doesn't need to be. He can still be a below-average quarterback and find fantasy success in this offense. Now, I'll say that was what my thought process was, and here is why I was incorrect. And I talk about this all the time. What we need to be doing is we need to be trying to objectively evaluate our process and the decision points that we made a season ago. And this decision with Drew Lock, it wasn't good process. It was bad process, bad result. It was just bad all around. And that was because Drew Lock, first off, doesn't have rushing upside. We've always known that. So that is a major red flag. And the last thing you need to be doing is taking a quarterback that has a low floor when he doesn't provide you that rushing upside. And I'll say another quarterback that we were investing in a lot in this range last offseason was a Jalen Hurts. And there is the perfect example of the difference between the two quarterbacks. Now, you could argue that both of these quarterbacks have an extremely low floor where when we were drafting them last offseason, you couldn't necessarily say for certain that either Drew Lock or Jalen Hurts would be a starting quarterback in 2021. But what we could say is we could say, you know what? If Jalen Hurts is the starter, he has top 5 upside just because what he can do on the ground with his legs. And Drew Lock simply doesn't have that. I mean, Drew Lock, without the rushing equity, could never. It doesn't matter what his skill position group around him is. It doesn't matter if he's playing with Andy Reid, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and the Kansas City Chiefs. He could never come close to that type of finish. And on top of that, when he's a second-round NFL draft pick, we have to know that the historical hit rates on those quarterbacks are very, very low. So that's another red flag that we have to be looking at. So Drew Lock, I mean, I owe myself an apology for accruing him in so many different dynasty leagues. It was a bad decision. It was a bad decision for a multitude of reasons. I'm hoping I don't fall into the same trap. I think some people may fall into this trap with a Mac Jones. Mac Jones is going to be very similar. He's going to have second-round NFL draft capital. He is also not going to have any rushing upside in the slightest. So that's why I'm already saying that Mac Jones at the middle of the second round in Superflex leagues is going to be a quarterback that I'm avoiding. But talking about specifically Drew Lock and what we are going to be expecting in 2021, if we just try to take a step back and reevaluate this Denver Broncos situation, I think we can almost guarantee that the Denver Broncos are going to be, at the very minimum, bringing in another quarterback for a quarterback competition between their new guy and Drew Lock. I think the most likely scenario is they just bring in a new starter entirely. But they have multiple options with this. We know that they have Drew Lock on a rookie contract, and he was selected in the second round. So I wouldn't be surprised if Drew Lock was getting paid the smallest amount of money compared to all starting quarterbacks in 2020. So having to, quote-unquote, get his contract off the books is not going to be a problem. He's already getting paid less than the majority of backup NFL quarterbacks. So Denver doesn't need to worry about that. And they have a very appealing landing spot for someone like Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, or if they want to go out there and draft someone with the 9th pick overall. I know it's not necessarily extremely likely, but maybe a Trey Lance falls to them at 9. And I think that would just completely erase Drew Lock. I think that he would never be mentioned in a fantasy football article, fantasy football podcast, or whatever, ever again, unless we are bringing up his name just to kind of laugh at it like a Brock Osweiler. So yeah, Drew Lock, it sucks to say because I have him just kind of wasting away on way too many rosters, but I'm afraid that his value is going to be going very, very close to zero. All right, so now let's go to our next quarterback, and I'll say that, yes, I mean, maybe this is just the Mason Dodd apology video because this quarterback, not only do I have on a ton of rosters, but I was also advocating for you to go out there and trade for him last offseason. This is Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, so I will say that Jimmy Garoppolo at the beginning of the offseason, I was going, you know what, maybe this could be an intriguing buy low quarterback. Yes, his 2020 season was disappointing, but that was mainly due to the injuries that he suffered. And we know in 2021, similar to the Denver Broncos, the San Francisco 49ers are going to have one of the most appealing, if not the most appealing, situations for a quarterback coming in, where Brandon Ayuk just exploded all over the place in his rookie season. On top of that, we know that they have Deebo Samuel, an elite yards after the catch receiver, and they have, in my opinion, the best offensive weapon in the entire NFL in George Kittle. I know that's a hot take, but if you look at his blocking grades from PFF, which I know aren't everything, but I'm not going to sit out here and watch a tight end go and block 2,000 defenders throughout the course of his NFL career. And on top of that, just what he can do after the catch. I mean, I love George Kittle. I was thinking, crap, I mean, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo comes back as the starter in 2021. He uses this elite supporting cast around him to kind of return high-end quarterback to value. Then what I did is I went out and just double-checked the contract, because we all remember Jimmy Garoppolo getting a massive extension after a very small sample with the 49ers, and a lot of people called them stupid. A lot of people said, how are you giving Jimmy Garoppolo that much money? Well, what we failed to look at is we failed to look at the fact that, while yes, I mean, they owe Jimmy Garoppolo like $53 million over the next 2 seasons, what they don't really owe is Jimmy Garoppolo $50 million over the next 2 seasons, because if they decided to cut him this year, I think that the dead cap would be less than $3 million. So it's kind of a no-brainer at this point that the San Francisco 49ers are going to make a move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. They also have the 12th overall pick. So I'll say, because of the contract, I mean, I want to sit here, and very similar to Drew Lock, I have Jimmy Garoppolo on a lot of my own Superflex rosters. I want to try to look at a positive side of this, but I can't. I can't spin it in any direction outside of Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe he's a starting quarterback on another NFL franchise. I mean, I think that he is by no means a backup level quarterback at the NFL. I think that he can be kind of one of those journeyman quarterback that maybe just goes from franchise to franchise and plays half the season waiting for the rookie to come in. Very similar to a Ryan Fitzpatrick. But yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo, the contract is disgusting. So I'll say, maybe, say you have him in like, say you play in 20 Dynasty leagues, you have him in 4 Superflex leagues, go sell him in 2, and then once he gets cut, maybe you can go and buy him in a few different leagues at a shorter price. That way you can make an overall profit on your portfolio, because I really don't see anything else to do with Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. I mean, I think that we are just going to have to take the L here, and I'm probably going to have to ride out the value to 0, because I'm not sure how much you can even get for him in trade at this current moment. All right, so now our next quarterback, I am not going to lie. Whenever I knew that I had to make this video, I went, okay, this guy is a no-brainer. We are putting him on the list. And then I went through and kind of the opposite of Jimmy Garoppolo, where I was excited about Teddy Bridgewater and his value going to 0. I here went, oh crap, you know, Teddy Bridgewater may have a little bit of juice left in the tank. And that's because when you dive into the Bridgewater contract, he still has $20 million guaranteed in 2021. I have no idea how he was able to pull this off with the Carolina Panthers. Now, I will say the reason that we are going to be including Teddy Bridgewater on this list is it's clear that Carolina has no aspiration to have Teddy Bridgewater as their long-term starter. And it's clear because they were one of the teams going out there and inquiring about Matthew Stafford. I mean, reports leaked about them going and trying to trade for Carson Wentz. Now, the asking price was too high on both of these quarterbacks, and I kind of agree with the Carolina Panthers with that assessment. But they've also been trying to shed cap space, and they've been doing it fast at the same time. And what quarterback is currently on the trade market that has a ton in his salary that the Panthers would need to shed space for? Yeah, Deshaun Watson. I mean, I think that it's possible that the Carolina Panthers are one of those teams that, A, decides to try to go out there and trade for Deshaun Watson. And if that doesn't work, very similar to what we said with the Denver Broncos and trying to package together pick 9 and then a couple future picks at the same time for Watson, Carolina can do the same thing at number 8. And if they don't make that move, obviously that move's unlikely, but they could still keep that number 8 pick. Maybe they get a quarterback like Justin Fields, Trey Lance falling to them in this range. Or maybe they go out there and they go, you know what? Let's try James Winston. Let's try someone of that caliber just to kind of have a quarterback battle with Teddy Bridgewater. Because I know the contract is pretty much saying that Teddy Bridgewater is going to have a role on this team in 2021. Whether or not he starts out with a quarterback battle and then loses the job, I think that we can say that eventually Teddy Bridgewater is most likely going to see his value just kind of vanish, because once they're able to bring in another option, I think Carolina is going to be happy to make that switch. All right, so now our last quarterback here is going to be someone that I am telling you to sell now, buy later, because I think we are going to have a wild offseason with this situation. This is going to be Matt Ryan. Okay, so I know Matt Ryan is a quarterback that is a big name. I know Matt Ryan is only 35 years old, and at the same time, he's locked in with his contract until 2022. But if we are looking at the Atlanta Falcons, they really are in no position to try to go out there and make a run at it in 2021, in my opinion. I mean, the defense is way too bad. Julio is on the wrong side of 30, and Matt Ryan and his efficiency has completely dropped off. And I will say, based on the quarterback that Matt Ryan was throughout his NFL career, I think that he would be a great mentor for the Atlanta Falcons to bring someone in. And if you go through, if you just look at a handful of mock drafts, you are consistently seeing NFL draft scouts have the Atlanta Falcons taking a Zach Wilson, a Justin Fields, a Trey Lance, all at that number 4 pick. And I think because of the talent of the quarterback draft class here, I think that we are going to see Atlanta make a move. That number 4 pick is definitely going to be a quarterback. It's either going to be a quarterback that another team selects that Atlanta traded back with, or it's going to be a quarterback that Atlanta selects themselves to be the quarterback of the future. And this is why I am saying that I think we want to be selling Matt Ryan. So say you are in a situation like we just talked about. Say you're in 10 Dynasty leagues, and then you go out there and you have Matt Ryan in 2 of them. I think what you should probably do right now is you should probably see what kind of value you could get for Matt Ryan in a Superflex format. And then once the Atlanta Falcons decide to draft someone with that number 4 overall pick, you are going to see Matt Ryan and his value just plummet. I mean, people are going to be assuming that he is automatically getting replaced. People are going to be assuming that Matt Ryan is done in Dynasty. And I think Matt Ryan is too good of a quarterback. He has too long of a track record of having success in the NFL that I think he is still going to maintain a starting role somewhere in the league. But once you see the Atlanta Falcons make that draft pick at number 4, regardless of what that means for Matt Ryan in his next 3 or 4 years in the NFL as a journeyman, his dynasty value is going to plummet. And then you can go out and you can buy him in a couple different leagues and just make an overall profit on the situation. Okay, now, thank you guys. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. And yeah, I hope I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow.